The European Union's EU AI Act is an act which basically tries to understand the risks of AI to better regulate them. It wants to make sure, for instance, that government players cannot abuse AI, that systems that would be critical to society could not indeed be abused as well, and to basically regulate our higher risk system. And so we have from this different levels of risk that it has seen. Now, you have your AI systems with minimal, or maybe a chatbot is not exactly going to be something that is going to create great societal problems. Let's see if we have any malicious chatbots, but usually this kind of AI system would have minimal risks and would have no legal requirements. Something that can improve your pictures using AI is not going to be something that is going to be deeply important or risky for society at large. We get on to the limited risk systems. Here we have, say, customer service tools or certain chatbots that would really be customer oriented. Why are these slightly higher risk? We're talking about limited risk because they could impact customer welfare. They could indeed impact customers in certain ways if they are improperly configured or otherwise taken over by, say, hostile actors. We're not going to exaggerate the risks here. The systems have a low risk but require basic transparency obligations just so, well, our regulator and also the consumers and other organizations and companies can understand who they're dealing with and what these kind of chatbots can actually do, maybe some of their effects or some of their uses. For instance, how the data that they get is being used. If you are talking to your bank's chatbot and you give confidential information to that chatbot, you still want to understand that confidential information being given will not then be used for, say, commercial purposes, to sell you products, not be used, for instance, to inform other customers about problems, or even be used as a reason to, say, punish you because you said something that would be, for instance, show that you have low financial ability, and banks don't want customers having low financial ability. You're at a low limited risk category. That said, you still need to give certain requirements in terms of transparency. It's when you're getting into higher risk systems that you really have controls in place. These are systems that are allowed, but they are subject to pretty strict requirements. So let me give a few examples. If you have a loan granting system, if you have a system that is going to go and select candidates for recruitment or even selection for promotion within the organization, if, for instance, you have a system that is going to go through everyone's Slack messages, their messenger messages that they have been giving to each other, maybe their emails, to then try to understand how, say, active and proactive they are, you're still within the realm here of an AI system that is going to try to understand the characteristics of someone's employment or future employment, or whether they get a loan or things like that. And so these could have a huge impact on society. These could have effects on, for instance, which kinds of groups get hired. And here suddenly we're into the domain of discrimination. We don't want something that, for instance, looks at postal codes as a proxy for ethnicity, or directly tries to look at, say, wording to understand what kind of community this person belongs to, even their religion and creed, or their ethnicity, or even where they're from, might be characteristics that an AI system could pick up on without humans really understanding, unless you have proper transparency. So we especially look at the domains of healthcare. Imagine we're feeding data to an AI system which can determine health outcomes for all of its clients. We want this to work correctly. Transportation, education, employment, or law enforcement. We had some early systems in law enforcement which would pick up on patterns of supposed misdeeds, and law enforcement trusting these systems and believing that they were beyond reproach. but finally that these were just hallucinations, that is to say, incorrect inputs that would lead to improper outputs. And finally, we have the unacceptable risk. These are the cases where especially state actors are not allowed to do things that could threaten human rights or safety. We have no exception here. It's already in place since the law came out. The different countries of the European Union have been completely prohibited from using different AI techniques that certain more authoritarian governments use, for instance, spying on their citizens, attributing goodwill scores to different people, how good as a citizen they might be, or how likely they might dissent on certain things. So that has been absolutely unacceptable in the European Union, and I, for one, am happy that we have these rather democratic controls over artificial intelligence. Key obligations for high-risk AI systems. We have a number of them. We need to conduct risk assessments. In other words, understand from these systems potential risks associated with the AI system. Things that could impact society, things that could create problems for people seeking promotion, people seeking to be hired, people seeking a loan, simply discrimination to clients of a certain ethnic demographic. We need to understand the risk assessment of these different things. We need to ensure that quality of the data, high quality data sets that would reduce bias and improve performance. We don't want a data set that, for instance, would be biased in certain ways to thinking that we would have improper behavior from certain people. We can, for instance, not give an AI system the training data of, say, the streets and addresses where supposedly good candidates would come from. You might give, say, a model CV. You might give a model CV of a good employee that would fit a position, but from that CV, you'd remove pictures, you would remove address, you'd remove even maybe phone numbers or any personal characteristics, so that when the system is judging on the quality of a candidate against a number of template CVs, it would not mistakenly say that good candidates come from these boroughs or these cities. Enable human oversight. That's actually, I think, one of the greatest problems will be transparency and human oversight, because even when you have human oversight, it doesn't necessarily mean that our humans can understand the underlying transformations of data. After all, these are very complex systems. They work on probabilities in its different layers of machine learning, of the neural network. It's going to get to certain points where it's saying we give a 50% probability that this is a good characteristic of this candidate, and then it narrows down to 85 to 95, where we're getting towards a final decision. But do you really think our humans are able to go through the data to understand these things? Here's the thing. A high-risk system in the European Union would have to implement a transparency which would be able to really understand the reasons for arriving at a final result, that it would give clear and transparent information about the AI's functioning, about its limitation and its intended purpose. I like this last one, intended purpose. So we could use maybe our banking's AI chatbot to understand quantum physics, but that's not its intended purpose. Now, if it hasn't been properly limited in its capabilities, remember narrow AI, then it might actually be able to do those things, but that's not its intended purposes. When you have the ability to control the behavior of people, so here, for instance, you can relatively well control your employees in an organization. Our HR manager has certain guidelines, is supposed to have policies, procedures. You can guide them, but you cannot so easily guide the wider public that, for instance, is going to get a chatbot, that, for instance, is going to get an image AI improvement tool. But you can still say what the intended purpose is, and when you have the ability to control these people, your HR people, your loan granting officers, then you'd be able to really define the intended purpose of the AI system. And finally, you want robust documentation. You want to basically be able to say what is permitted of these systems, how they work. If someone new to the organization needs to look at these systems, they should be able to look through documentation to be able to fix any problems, any incidents, and understand the outputs that the system gives in an appropriate manner.